And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the Big Blue in the Bronx YouTube channel. Notably for this episode, the Big Blue in the Bronx podcast. We are here tonight, very, very delayed, and I'll get into that in a few seconds. But we are here to talk about the New York Giants 2025 draft class. If you haven't already, hit that like button, comment, and subscribe. Turn on post notifications so you know when a live stream pops or a video drops. I appreciate y'all coming back. Like, share out, do all the good stuff. But as I mentioned at the beginning, I want to just go into a minute detail of what's been going on. Obviously, I've been working to graduate college. Finals are all done right now. I graduate on Friday, but right now, as you could see, I know there's going to be some people pointing it out in the chat, and I have my suspects. I am not my natural habitat. I am not in my studio. I'm not in my brother's studio, which is the room that we share. I am in Athens, Georgia. Yes, I will be attending a broadcasting/radio convention this week at the University of Georgia. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Great opportunity for myself and Luca, but that's obviously why you don't see the usual stuff in the background. I'm currently in another state. But with that said, like, comment, subscribe. Shout outs to Max, Armand, and Jacob in the chat. I saw him earlier. Make sure to vote on the poll. Do all the good stuff. So without further ado, let's get right into it. I'm going to try to answer your questions, your chats in there. Throw them in, please. More people in the chat, more popping, more conversation. That's always great. So you guys know, and I'm going to start out with this because I think it's a good headliner. You guys know damn well that after the Giants did not take a quarterback, well, really it started also when the Giants and Wink Martindale parted ways. They said, look, you got to have a vision for this team. And that was going into 2024, and you had Shane Bowen come in, and the expectations were pretty much the same for the defense, despite losing the coordinator, which really didn't make any sense. So you have Shane Bowen come in, and the Giants didn't opt to draft a quarterback. They drafted Malik Nabers, and we all saw how that ended. The Giants have their worst season in franchise history at 3-14, and I was on the train with a lot of different people, but like, dude, we got to fire these guys. We got to get rid of these guys. Bring somebody else in because they had 3 years and they severely regressed. So John Mara brought him back, right? Just bring him back, perception, whatever the case may be. And I'm going to say this, and it's going to be maybe agreeable for some people, maybe not. I think this is the best on paper offseason that the Giants have had, that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll have had ever since coming in. And what I like about it is everyone, including themselves, have tried to parallel with Buffalo. Oh, Buffalo this, Buffalo that, bring in this Buffalo guy, bring in that Buffalo guy, what have you. Well, also, they should parallel with a different team, but I'll get into that in a second. What does Buffalo do usually? Buffalo, they draft their guys. And in free agency, they do minimal pickups. The Giants didn't have many pickups in free agency this year. They hit at different spots, but they didn't like splash. They mainly did it on the defensive side of the ball, but it wasn't like they're signing 500 marquee free agents. This is not 2016 or 2019 or whatever year where the Giants front office is really trying to save their ass, right? It's not like they're getting aging veterans and signing them to different contracts. Again, this is not 2016. And for me I wouldn't say completely do a 180 on this, but to like turn a corner on this is a little strange, but I see the vision. I'm starting to see the vision a little bit more. Obviously, the Giants, they signed Paulson Adebo. They signed Javon Holland. They re-signed GVR. They didn't really do much on the offensive side of the ball, a couple of depth signings. They brought back Chris Mannertz. Obviously, they signed Russell Wilson, but that wasn't a big contract. The Jameis Winston contract was not big. So, people could look at the numbers or the names and say, oh, they had a expensive offseason. And I don't think the Giants had a lot of money to maneuver with, but I just think it's going in the right direction. Very contrarian to what I thought how many months ago, which is a good thing. Now, of course, we'll see what happens because it can be great on paper and it could suck on the field. So we really have to see where these things play out. And I'll say this as well before I get to your comments and then we jump into the picks is something I repeated on multiple live streams before the draft even begun. I said, the New York Giants, if they want to get this right and they want to get people back into the building and they want to get believers again and screw what the media says if there's hype or if there's not hype, I really don't care. I'm looking at this team objectively as a fan and as somebody who's looked at this team for a very long time. And what I said is that they needed to go out and draft like the Eagles. And I was a little surprised they didn't pick up a pure linebacker in this draft. Obviously, they drafted Abdul Carter at 3, but like a pure inside linebacker like a Demetrius Knight or someone of that ilk in the draft. But anyway, I digress. The reason why I wanted them to draft like the Philadelphia Eagles is because obviously Howie Roseman has been phenomenal at drafting. There's no question about it. And the way he goes about it is he's taking these guys and then he's putting them in holes where this guy's about to retire. This guy's about to be a cap cut. This guy's about to be traded. Cooper DeJean and Kenyon Mitchell, right? They're coming in. They came in last year. They're going to be second-year starters this year. James Bradbury, I don't think he's on the team anymore. Darius Slay, he's in Pittsburgh. So you see the vision there, right? Fletcher Cox is retired. So you had Jordan Davis and Jalen Carter there. Brandon Graham is retired. They let Josh Sweat go. So they're letting the young kids. Bryce Huff wasn't a great signing, but they're letting the young kids and Nolan Smith and some of their other pass rushers. They also signed Azeez Ojulari, who probably is better than Bryce Huff, let's be honest, when he's healthy. And then the O-line, right? The O-line is a big one. They drafted Cam Jurgens a couple of years ago. They signed him to a good extension just recently. They drafted Landon Dickerson, a guy that the Giants wanted when Brandon Brooks retired, right? Jason Peters, he was coming out of his prime, and they drafted Jordan Mailata. They didn't expect him to be anything, and he was a rugby player, and he's one of the better left tackles in the NFL. So what I wanted them to incorporate was, okay, you got Brandon Brown in that front office. He was with the Eagles for a number of years. Put that into your draft strategy. And it's just interesting that like the last 2 years, and I know I probably firsthand right off of the bat in 22 and 23, I'm not going to deny it. I don't remember the specifics, but I probably complimented Dable and Shane and said, this is a good draft class. This is a good draft class. But looking at it now, I think the Giants are headed into a good direction, at least. They're headed in a good direction. And it's really the last 2 draft classes that are driving them. Because let's be honest, if they didn't have any stars last year, they may not have won 3 games. And, you know, they may not have jobs at this point. So it's very interesting. And I think they've also set themselves up in a decent position where I'm not going to say that the Jackson Dart pick doesn't matter because it does. You came up back into the first round to select who you think your guy is. But at the end of the day, if Jackson Dart doesn't work out and you have the trenches stacked and, you know, you miss on a quarterback, but your team, your surrounding core is still good, John Mara is likely going to keep you around. And obviously we'll find out more about this team as we go on training camp next year, this year, whatever. But those are just my quick first thoughts. What's up to Rob E11? Completely agree. Thought Shane was going to sprint like crazy to save his job and went wisely and made some really solid additions. I agree. Thank you, Armand. Appreciate that. Max says, I like the draft class. My concern is we didn't get a kicker to compete with Cano and depth for the season. Yeah, Cano is getting a little older. That is a little concerning. Last year, he wasn't the greatest. 2023, he wasn't the greatest. So I would imagine that at some point they pick up a kicker on the practice squad. They do have Jude McAtomney, who is still on the roster, the Irish guy from last year. who didn't do terrible. I think he made one extra point or one field goal in one game last year. So we'll see what happens moving forward. Though everything will be denied by how great Dart is. I have no doubt Abdul Carter. My concern is Dart. Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to talk about that when we break down the pick. What's up to Miz? He's very excited, and I'm very excited. So we match feelings on that one. We definitely need linebacker. It's a concern of mine since last season. We have no depth if either Mike or Bobbio gets injured. I think we should resign Micah, considering he's homegrown. He's not a terrible player. He's good against the run. Though he's a liability in coverage, ideally he'd be a good third. I think they'll get that done. If you saw the way Micah McFadden, I know that the missed tackles were a thing last year with Micah McFadden. He's going to get re-signed. If the Giants don't re-sign him, that's a huge indictment on their own general manager. But I have confidence in Joe Schoen that he's going to get that done because not only is McFadden a good player for where he was picked, he also fits the new I can't say it's a new, but he fits the defensive scheme. So again, I'm going to agree that they're going to end up re-signing Micah McFadden, but I think at some point you'll see the Giants attack linebacker probably next offseason. And I think they also want to see where a certain guy picked at a 3 overall fits in the defense, which is really our first point. Abdul Carter, 3rd overall pick for the Giants in this draft out of Penn State. And let me say this. I know I came out with a video and I'm getting clowned for it. I like the attention. Thank you very much. About the Shedeur Sanders at 3 thing. I never dissed Abdul Carter as a player. I never dissed him as a player. I just thought quarterback was important. And that was really my philosophy behind selecting Shedeur at 3. Obviously, we all see how the pieces are falling now and how the pieces will fall in the future. But Abdul Carter is a game wrecker. And let me say this. I'm going to put this flat on the face of the earth here. My take this is. And I'm going to say I think he's a better prospect than Abdul Carter. And I believe he was a top 3 prospect in this draft. The way that he was battling guys, I mean, he plays all over the fronts. I mean, it's impeccable, number one. Number two, when he had that injury, I know he had the foot injury. He also had the arm injury. The way he was, and I get it, he was facing a backup right tackle for Notre Dame, who's my favorite college. But the way he was battling these guys with one arm, and again, I know it's a backup tackle, but his talent is like none other that I have seen in a very long time. And I think a lot of people are just opening their eyes. And I know people are saying, oh, he asked for Lawrence Taylor's number. He's going to ask for Sims' number. It's like, I don't really give too much of a crap about the number stuff. I care about what he's going to do on the field. And I think he's a better prospect than Thibodeaux because I think he's got less concerns about overall play. Like, he's a dog. And that's another thing I want to talk about is that the Giants drafted dogs. They didn't draft scientists. They didn't draft math teachers. They didn't draft economic students. They didn't draft advertising specialists. They drafted dogs. Abdul Carter is a dog. Jackson Dart is a dog. Cam Scatterbo is a dog. Marcus Bowe is a dog. Tommy Fedone is a dog. Corey Black, the way he makes these tackles behind the line, he hits you hard on special teams. That's a dog mentality. And that's a mentality that I think the Giants need to embrace. And I've been vocally against this older mentality of we got to go back to the 80s football and do this, that, and the other thing. But there are certain things you can still make your identity based on the past, right? I'm not saying sell your past or become the past. I'm saying take the good increments that still work today and become that, right? Let Abdul Carter become a dog. Let Jackson Dart become a dog. Because before I get to the Dart pick, and I'm not even finished with the Carter pick, like you had Daniel Jones, right? I know some people have their thoughts on him, whatever the case may be. That era is now over. But he didn't really have a moxie. He didn't have a dog mentality. I mean, yeah, he would not slide, but Dart has a pep in his step. So that's just my opinion on that. But anyway, back to Abdul Carter. one of my questions pre-draft was where is he going to fit? And I think the Giants will allow themselves this season. They took the 5th-year option on Kayvon Thibodeaux. So I think they're allowing themselves to see, okay, right? Let's see what happens. How do we fit Abdul Carter into this defense? And Abdul Carter is part of the future. There's no questions asked. I think the question mark we have now is where Thibodeaux is long term, but I think for this season you're going to see those three guys play out: Carter, Brian Burns, and Kayvon Thibodeaux, which is completely fine because that scares the shit out of an opposing defense. I'm not even going to just like sugarcoat it. And you have Dexter Lawrence, who's coming back from an injury. Not my concern in terms of, I'm not worried about that. So, Carter can play in the middle. He could go up against guards, not consistently, but he could go up against guards. He's got the speed. He's got the power. He's got the moves. He's got the bend, and he plays the edges too. And it's just, he is a dynamic player. And I can see, I'm not saying he is, I can see where the Parsons comparisons come in. I can see that, right? Maybe the Giants have their own Parsons. Maybe he's better than Parsons. Maybe he's like Parsons, or maybe he's a little bit not on the level of Parsons. But for right now that it's not a concern for the future, at least of this moment, and I think the Giants are acting like it as well, I want to see where they incorporate him in the defense. I want to see how many snaps he plays because he better be getting a lot of snaps, right? The Giants, ideally, not even ideally, just you look at the asset management. They have a first-round pick, and a second and a fifth in the edge rushing room. And that's all on those three guys. So you need production. And you're going to need to get creative. And Shane Bowen, that's on you. And it's also on Shane Bowen, not just for those guys, right? They invested in the secondary. They got Javon Holland, who was a great signing. They also got Paulson Adebo as the corner one. So, we'll see what happens. But Abdul Carter, man, I love the pick. I think it's a dangerous defense. What's up to Mr. Hayes in the chat? What's going on? We ain't done. Feel like we're going to get a veteran wide receiver. Yeah. I think we could use a veteran wide receiver. If not, you're going to increase those chances of the Giants. Or not you personally, but that's a bad way of using the word. The Giants probably have those increased chances of a undrafted free agent making the roster because they cut little Jordan Humphrey. What would have the Giants done at 3 if Carter was taken at 2, trade down to draft Hunter? I wouldn't get as excited about Travis Hunter, but I feel like he would be their plan B. But they might also trade down. Like if the Browns stayed at 2 and pick Carter, and then you maybe trade with Jacksonville. You can put Carter anywhere. Ideally, you have him for the most part at the edge, but you can have him as a spy versus Jackson and Hurts. And also, someone brought this up on Twitter. His leg movement is like fantastic for someone his size. So, D is dangerous, like Daniel McCartan said. I was on her live best D line in the NFL. Definitely could be. So, now we move on to the quarterback. And here's my timeline on Jackson Dart. My timeline. I was hearing about him. I was told to do research on him as the season ended by multiple people. You got to do research on Dart. You got to do research on this guy, as everybody was doing their research on their quarterbacks. So there's that. And I stumbled upon Dart a little bit before the Senior Bowl, before we went down to the Senior Bowl. And I'm like, okay, he kind of plays like a MVP Carson Wentz light. He's not MVP Carson Wentz, but I'm also not going to call him the Carson Wentz of now, who is totally degraded. I'm not going to do that. So I'm like, okay, I see where the faults are and stuff like that. I graded him, and I'm looking at my original scouting report, late first, early second. He's got some nasty zip on the ball. And I know, obviously, the combine, it's in your shorts and in shorts and minicamp, but I don't think it's I don't think it's something to put down that he's got some serious zip on the ball. RPO fit possibly with the offense he played at Ole Miss, which also kind of leans to a concern is there wasn't too many reads, but I think if anyone at this point can get the most out of him, it's Brian Dable. At least within the Giants organization. Externally, you probably have other components and other coaches like O'Connell and Sean McVay. I'm a firm believer personally that the Los Angeles Rams wanted Jackson Dart as a future guy, but I think you kind of saw that too, because why would the Rams trade out with the Falcons? They did collect a first-round pick for next year, which is great, but also I think he does try to play hero ball sometimes, has some stupid mistakes. But like the main concern, I think, for most people is how he's going to translate to the NFL with the scheme he played in at Ole Miss. So I think there's definitely talent there. I think he's better than Daniel Jones, and they have a vision, right? Was he my favorite quarterback prospect? No, but I'm going to give him a chance, and I think everybody should give him a chance. There's no, prejudgment on this guy. And for stats wise, he had 29 touchdowns, 6 INTs last year, 4,279 yards. He broke Ole Miss records. He broke Eli Manning's records. You will see him in 2025. I think that's going to be an inevitability. By the way, folks, the schedule release comes out this week. Want to let you know on that. Because I think the Giants will have to get him in some games in 3 situations, right? The first situation is end of the year. The Giants are not in the playoff hunt, or they are, whatever they are, they have a losing record. Then Russell Wilson will get benched for Jackson Dart, and Jackson Dart era will start right there. Number 2, which also could be part of number 1, and the same thing with number 3, is the Giants are getting their asses beat. And you just need to throw in Jackson Dart for a few reps, see how he handles the adversity, kind of like practice, but it's a live game and you're being tackled. Number 3 is if you're blowing the other team out. If you're blowing the piss out of God knows what team. I don't think the Patriots as a team will blow out. The Saints, right? They just lost Derek Carr. So I'm sorry, I'll use the Saints. If you're beating the piss out of the Saints, then you throw Jackson Dart in there. I mean, that's a dome, so it does help him. But you're beating the piss out of the Saints, throw in Jackson Dart, see what he's got, It doesn't hurt you. So I think he will get a shot in 2025, but there are a couple of worries. And again, like if the Giants do well with their development in terms of the trenches, Darius Alexander, Abdul Carter, some of these other guys in this draft that you picked, and even with their past draft classes, if you do well with those guys and Dart's a miss, it's not the end of the world if you're still winning I almost said baseball games, football games. It's like into the Yankees for some reason. But we're going to move on to Darius Alexander next. 8 p.m. schedule, 8 p.m. on Wednesday night. Okay. Yeah. Cool. I'm going to try to keep, because I know there's some leaks already. I haven't seen any of the Giants leaks. Patriots, Giants, I saw a leak somewhere, but I didn't fully invest myself into it. The next guy is Darius Alexander, who is a guy that Luke got to interview at the Senior Bowl. Very nice guy. You could see that in his press conferences too. So he had 3.5 sacks last year, 1 INT for 58 yards. Big return there. He had 4 passes defended, total of 40 tackles in 12 games. He's a 5-year college player. So one of the things I've picked up on with the New York Football Giants, especially Joe Shannon and Brian Dable's era, is that they like to pick up 5-year, 6-year college players, which isn't bad, but as long as they're ready, that's not necessarily a problem. And I think Darius Alexander falls into that category. Brian did a scouting report on him. I'll compare it to the one on Bleacher Report. But also one of the things I just noticed from the stat sheet is he gets his hands up, right? He's primarily known as a run defender, but he gets his hands up. He has 13 passes defended over the course of 5 years. Didn't really play much in year 1. That was the COVID year. Then you had 2 in year 2, 3 in year 3, year 4 he had 4, and he had 4 this year. So he gets his hands up. Something Leonard Williams used to do, something a lot of other Giants defensive linemen used to do. I mean, JPP did it when he had the club. So I like that about Darius Alexander. Again, nice guy. Positives and negatives, let me go to that, because he's a guy that's not, obviously he's in the later rounds, so you're going to start to get to these strengths and weaknesses a little bit more. This is Bleacher Report, and then I'm going to go to Brian's scouting report. Good size, long arms for an NFL DT. Can make tackles with linemen hanging on to him. Solid swim move as a pass rusher. Gets off the ball and goes straight into the offensive lineman. And again, mentioned his run defense is where he has the most upside. The negatives, long strider, not explosive off the line of scrimmage, hurting his get off. Hips are a little stiff, needs more of a rushing plan, lack of agility and foot quickness. And then also for Sir Brian, let me pull up Mr. Darius Alexander on his behalf. I'm pretty sure it's most of the same thing. Darius Alexander. He had him graded as a 4th, but he said day 2 or day 3 pick. The Giants picked him in day 2. Has the size of a body strength. Powerful first punch, throws off linemen and opens the door to work around them. Has raw punishing moves to shed blocks with ease. Weaknesses: lacks burst off the snap, takes time to get to speed and proper positioning, collapsing the pocket. Must refine his moves to get consistency in his pass rush. So he needs to work on his pass rush, but to be honest with you, if he eats his double teams, and he's not going to get 100% of the snaps week 1. That's just not going to happen. That's an unrealistic expectation. He's going to work himself in there with the rest of the Giants defensive line. Elijah Chapman, Nacho, DJ Davidson, anyone who's still in the mix for the defensive line. And also Chauncey Golston's a hell of a pickup, by the way. Forgot to mention that one. But he's going to be in the mix. By the way, let's get to 10 likes, folks. He's going to be in the mix, and he's going to get more snaps as they go. And to finally see that the Giants, for the first time, I want to say since Dex, invest a high pick in a DT or a defensive lineman in the middle. I think that's the way the cookie crumbles. Because I can't think of any defensive lineman that the Giants invested like a top 1, 2, 3 pick since Dexter Lawrence. Before that, it was Dalvin Tomlinson. And also BJ Hill, you have to put in there as well. So 3 very good defensive linemen. I mean, Dexter is the best, but something we've gotten sick of is just, dude, okay, we got Jordan Riley, we got Chapman, who's an undrafted free agent. We got DJ Davidson. Those guys are like late round picks. Chapman's an undrafted free agent. Get some guys who, when Dex comes out, they're not going to get tired in the running game. Like, you have enough pass rushers. I think that whole thing for the Giants is solved, right? Dex in the middle. Chapman is a decent pass rusher. Davidson's a decent pass rusher. Nacho, not really. They also added Ledbetter. Played for a few different teams across the NFL. And you have Golston, but I'm talking also on the edges because that's going to help, and you're going to have double teams in the middle. But the run defense, right? The Giants didn't really defend the edges too well. They were okay. Their DBs were terrible against the run, but also, again, it's that same issue of Dexter Lawrence comes out of the game. The game plan for the opponent is, okay, let's run it right up the gut. And I don't think long-term, I'm not going to say right off the bat, but I don't think long-term teams are going to be able to do that because Darius Alexander is going to be right there. So there's that. What's up to Jacob? Where the hell are you? I am in Atlanta. Not Atlanta. I'm in Athens, Georgia. I think I said this at the beginning of the show. What's up to Man Cave? What's up to Evan? But Jacob, for your information, and everyone else's, for anyone else who's coming in and wondering, I am attending a broadcasting convention at the University of Georgia this week. So I'm in Athens. I'm about 10 minutes walking distance from the university. So there's that. Now let's move on to our 4th round pick, Mr. Cam Skattebo. And I was super pissed for one reason. I was pissed that he didn't go to the Senior Bowl because he was supposed to go and then he didn't go. Skattebo is a hell of a blocker. Skattebo is giving a lot of Giant fans the Brandon Jacobs-esque vibes. And he's a guy I wanted. And I said it coming into the offseason. I wanted some sort of a power back. Like, speed back is fine, but we have that with Tyrone Tracy. So RJ Harvey was on my list. LeQuint Allen from Syracuse. I don't know where he ended up. And there was a few other running backs. Cam Scatabo was one of them. And people say, well, what about the alcohol? And he's showing up to camp at Arizona State, overweight and stuff like that, and out of shape. I think he's going to get rid of all that shit because I think that's just college behavior. If I mark over that and that's an issue at the NFL level, then we're gonna have a serious problem. But this guy's a demon, man. This guy's an absolute demon. And I really can't wait to have him in the backfield. Like, fuck preseason for 20 seconds. I want to see him in the regular season, 3rd and 1, because you know what? The Giants haven't had a power back in a very long time. And again, that's where I was talking about earlier, where you could take stuff from the past and you don't have to replicate the entire past, but you could take those good qualities from the past and say, okay, we need that. Like I was talking about the trenches before, like I was talking about the dog mentality before with Cam Scatabo. That's the dog mentality, and that's the power back, right? Everybody remembers Earth, Wind, and Fire with Ahmad Bradshaw, Brandon Jacobs, and Derek Ward. Obviously, in the late 80s, early 90s, the running backs there, I think it was Rodney Hampton, Joe Morris, and alternative years. And now you have Cam Scatabo and Tyrone Tracy. So who's going to go? I don't know. Eric Gray, I mean, there's not much use for him. He's not a good special teamer. He's terrible on kick returns. He's not good at all on that. Devin Singletary kind of feels like he also could be on his way out. I just don't know where the value is. So if I'm looking at the running back room right now, I don't also see Dante Miller making it either. So you're probably looking at Singletary as that third back, which really isn't the worst thing in the world. I mean, but anyway, like, that's Singletary. I'm just excited for Scatabo, man. I mean, he's a big guy, big dog. 1,700 rushing yards last year, 21 touchdowns, over 130 yards per game. And he's also effective in the passing game, too. 605 receiving yards, 13.4 yards per reception, 3 touchdowns. He's also an asset in special teams. Not that you would want to use him there because I feel like the Giants want to, balance out Tracy. They want to balance out Scatabo. You don't want to get guys hurt. But in 2023, he had 42.3 yards per return on punt returns, 338 yards, 8 punt returns. And he also did some returning at Sacramento State. He had 5, and this was 2022, 5 returns for 105 yards, one of them going for a touchdown. So, that's, listen, and also that's kind of interesting, right? For a power back, you usually don't see him as a return guy, but he's an alternative option. Again, the Giants have Amir Smith-Marset, so I'm not really worried about the return game. But also, you got to see like who comes behind him. So there is that. And again, I just think it's him. I think it's Tyrone Tracy, and I think it's Devin Singletary. I don't see the Giants picking up some other back or whatnot. Appreciate it, Jacob. Allen went to the Jaguars. Yeah, I was thinking like Jaguars or Seattle or something. Thank you. I appreciate it. But before we get into Marcus Bowe, Tommy Fadone, and Corey Black, we are sponsored by SeatGeek, folks. So $20 off your online ticket order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. We got NBA playoffs. We got baseball season coming on. Obviously, football season in a couple of months. Hey, again, schedule releases this week. So if you're looking to buy those tickets early, $20 off your online ticket order with the promo code Big Blue in the Bronx. And if you used it already, share it with a friend. Share it with another friend. If you want to go to the game and you want to use the code, tell a friend, hey, listen, use this code. We'll get $20 off. Trust me, I've used it before, and it's a great benefit. What's up to Evan if I didn't already shout you out? Okay. I have story time for our next pick. If you guys haven't already heard the story time, and this was story time announced on day number 3. Day number 3 when this guy was picked of the NFL draft, and that's Marcus Bowe. So I did a scouting report on Marcus Bowe, and I'll get into that and stuff like that in a minute. And we hit the field. Bowe is one of the first guys I see. This was actually, ironically, the same day that I met Joe Schoen. I think it was the same day, yes. So go on the field, and we're like, hey, Marcus, you want to do an interview? He's doing drills with Josh Connerly and one other lineman. Maybe Jalen Travis. I don't remember. So anyway, he looks at Luka, and then he looks at me. He goes, and this is Marcus Bowe I'm talking about. He says, you with him? And I'm like, yeah, why? He goes, can you tell him to take that off? And of course he's joking. Like, he's not serious. He had my brother had a Notre Dame hoodie on. Notre Dame and Purdue are rivals, and Notre Dame beat the piss out of Purdue. So that's where the little joke comes in. And that's why I enjoyed the Marcus Bowe interview. And Bowe is, or was, and I guess still is, one of my favorite prospects coming out of this draft. And I really wanted him. And also, you guys can check out the interview on YouTube. So Bowe I had as a second, third round pick, and I wanted him at 3 separate spots. And what held him to the late rounds, I believe, was the injury he sustained in 2023 playing offensive tackle. But I wanted him when we picked Alexander. I wanted him when we picked Skatibo, and I wanted him when we picked him in the 5th round. But he's super athletic. He's got good second level blocking skills. He's got a dog mentality. He's got a nasty demeanor, and he's got excellent angle perception, which for the Giants you need, because the Giants, as much as the O-line wasn't a huge issue last year, the Giants really didn't run block that well. Like Runyon was missing some blocks, and GVR wasn't great, and Schmitz wasn't great. So like the interior was like the main problem. And Marcus Bowe, if he could come in at some point, I'm not saying now, later, and fix that. I mean, it would be an interesting concept, and it would be a fun concept to see. I mean, you want Bowe to work out at bare minimum. He is a swing tackle, swing guard. Now, the weakness is hand placement, opening hips, leaning, and inconsistent footwork. That's what I see. He's very athletic, though. His feet work really fast. And I think, like, a lot of people said this on Twitter. This is what they wanted Joshua Ezeudu to be. But Ezeudu never came to be that because he never played guard. Personally, I never thought Ezeudu was a good prospect. Like, when they put him at guard in the little snaps that they did in the first 2 years, I was like, this guy's not going to work. It's just not going to happen with him. And then they put him at tackle because they thought his foot speed would match up with the edges, and he had hand placement issues. So I think they're trying to amend the Ezeudu pick with the Bowe pick, but I think Bowe has a higher ceiling and could start on this offensive line. Again, I think he's got a huge dog mentality. He allowed 3 sacks, 1 hit, 21 hurries last year, and he also played right guard in 2022, which begs the question, right? Where is he going to play? When is he going to play? Let's list the scenarios. Scenario number 1 is you do have a right tackle who's a free agent next year. Personally, I'd like to re-sign him depending on the year he has this year, and that is Jermaine Eluemunor, right? You also have another scenario. GVR does something, whether he moves to center or he's not here next year or something along those lines. You move Bowe to right guard, or you say, hey, Bowe is better as a tackle. That's where he's going to get his work. And we're going to shift Jermaine Eluemunor to right guard, where he played a little bit in Vegas and a little bit in New England, but he's been better as a tackle for the Giants. Another situation, right? Let's say, we have GVR. He moves to center because John Michael Schmitz gets injured, or John Michael Schmitz isn't doing good. GVR moves to center, Marcus Bowe to right guard. So there's a million scenarios on the right side that this could play a factor. And also, we haven't really brought up the scenario of, hey, John Runyon probably gets cut after this year if the contract allows for it, which I think it does. I think it's a 2-year contract. It's a 3-year contract, really, but it's a 2-year. After 2 years, you get out of it. So that's another scenario, right? I think the Giants will also have to draft offensive line next year or sign an offensive lineman, depending on where they stand in the cap. It also depends on Runyon's performance, because if he outduels what he did last year, then he's up for an extension potentially. But in year 1, I don't see a lot of playing time for Bowe. I think injuries will happen on the offensive line. It always happens. Like, you're not going to get guys for 17 games, especially in this era of the NFL where you're like 17 games, it's not 16 anymore. So, in that regard, I think late in the year you'll see him. I think he'll definitely be one of the top guys to step in if there is an injury, but they have to fix some of the issues. Like, he's got, again, good athleticism. His feet are fast. It's just footwork is an issue, and getting the kick slide and all those different things and leaning. That's a little bit of an issue I have with him, and some hand placement. But he's not developing under Bobby Johnson. He's not developing under Hal Hunter. He's developing under Carmen Brasillo, and I have full faith and confidence that he will at least be something for us. What's up to Big Dash? What's up? Nimmer, I don't know, man. They got their asses beat. They got their asses handed to them yesterday. And they're much more of an away team, which is kind of like the Giants. They're much more of they play better away than they do at home. And, I could give the Giants that because obviously we have our thoughts about MetLife Stadium. I can't give the Knicks that. Listen, you're at the Garden. People are spending $700 to see you. Let's do a little bit better. Back to the Giants. Tommy Fedone. Make sure you get that like button, people. Subscribe. Do all the good stuff. He's another guy that we got to interview. I mean, it was a less quality interview because Brian was on his own, and when you're on your own and you have a camera, it's a lot to balance, but I credit him. Tommy Fedone, he also did his scouting reports. So, like, the negatives on him is he needs to get better with route running. I mean, tight ends usually aren't like the most prestigious route runners unless you're talking about a guy like Tyler Warren. But again, I don't really use that against him. Brian graded him as a 5th rounder, and also he's had 2 ACL injuries over the last few years. So that's kind of why he fell. Nebraska last year, no touchdowns, 373 yards, 36 catches, 10.4 yards per reception. And then the year prior, 4 touchdowns, 21.7 yards per. I'm sorry. I was reading, or was I reading something wrong? Okay, 21.7 yards per game, 10.4 yards per reception, 260 yards, 25 catches in 12 games. And he's got a big frame. And I think the Giants are envisioning something with Tommy Fedone. Not that he's going to be this great tight end, but he's 6'6", something like 256. No more undersized tight ends. Big guy, big red zone threat. Potentially untapped potential there, as we have talked about with him missing time due to injuries and et cetera, et cetera. You have Theo Johnson, who's coming back from injury, so he's a guy that's also a big threat. I would love for them to get Daniel Bellinger involved, but I just don't see that happening. So as far as who does he replace, I think he's got more blocking upside as of this moment. I think he's got some untapped potential as a receiving tight end. I don't know that he goes to a tight end 2. He might be a tight end 3. That's probably where he is to start, to be honest. I mean, think of it this way. I just don't see the Giants keeping 4 tight ends heading into the season unless you keep less receivers, which is kind of possible because they don't really have that back end right now. Like, you have Slayton, you have Neighbors, you have Robinson, and you have Pascal, who's in play. You have Bryce Ford Wheaton, who's potentially in play. I don't think he's in play that much. Jalen Hyatt, Bo Collins. I have some Notre Dame bias there. Juice Wells, who's a guy that played with Jackson Dart at Ole Miss, so they have a rapport. So as far as Fedone goes, I think it's probably going to be tight end 3 to start. I don't know. As I said, it's going to be interesting. I can't really predict right now if he's going to replace Bellinger because I feel like you could get a 6th or a 7th for Bellinger, and for some reason they don't like him. But you know what? It's sad, but I guess that's their decision, right? So it is what it is. Unfortunately, we can't do anything about it. But the last pick we'll talk about is Corey Black, the defensive back. 5 years, by the way, just like Darius Alexander. 5-year corner out of Oklahoma State. Kind of like Rodarius Williams a couple years ago. But anyway, I digress. 3 interceptions this past season. 1 interception the year prior. 36 tackles, 17 the year prior. as far as what this guy brings to the table, he's probably going to start on special teams, but I like the Giants drafting a corner because outside of Cordell Flott, right? Look who else you have in that room right now. You have D. Williams, who's a returner. You have Drew Phillips, who obviously is your slot guy. Nick Jones from Ball State a few years ago. You don't know where he's going to be. Trey Hawkins is coming off of a season-ending injury, but I kind of like the way he played for the Giants in limited snaps last year. Art Green, I mean, maybe. Flott, I mentioned, but Black has some upside to him. I saw that Bleacher Report and what was it? 33rd team did project him as a 5. So there is potential, right? There is potential. His hands on the ball. He's got 21 pass defenses over the past 5 seasons with Oklahoma State. So he's physical at the point of attack with getting to the football. 4 interceptions over the past 2 years. That's great. His speed is there. Special teams versatile. And that's not just saying it because he's a late round pick, but he's got history of blocking kicks and blocking punts. The Giants could use that on special teams. I bet your ass that Michael Gobriel was, he was involved with this pick saying, hey, we're in the late rounds. Let's get some special teamers. Corey Black, right? He blocks punts, he blocks kicks, whatever. Good size and good length. I feel like I was looking at his stats earlier. It was 6'0", 185 for a corner. He plays good in man coverage. He's got a couple of weaknesses we'll talk about in a second, but he's good in man coverage. He's a good tackler. And Phillips had his moments where he wasn't a good tackler last year, and even coming into the NFL and even in college. And the Giants have had some problems with corners that can't tackle. So in this case, if he's a good tackler, maybe he's a good run defender, right? The Giants had a lot of issues last year, not just in the defensive line room, but in the DB room where guys were not making tackles and runners were breaking away. The Bucky Irving run still gives me some bad memories, but he's a good tackler, good man coverage corner. Some of the issues with him is he was flagged 13 times in the last 4 seasons. That's a little tight. Maybe you need the Joe Judge tennis ball drill, but I have a feeling that he's going to end up getting rid of those issues, and he's not going to play that much anyway. If he does, I hope those issues go away. He does take some bait sometimes with double moves. Not great, obviously. Again, we're talking about a freaking late round pick, so this is not like we're slamming the table because he was a 3rd and he should have been picked later. And also route recognition and spacing and zone coverage. So, but there's also conflicting reports where I read one report that said, he's good at diagnosing routes. And then the other one says he's not good at route recognition, but zone spacing, like zone coverage is something he's going to have to work on. But I feel like I'm not saying we should or whatever, because we don't know what the season's going to look like. If Adebo can play man coverage a little bit, and let's just say, not that I would want this to happen, but Banks, well, even Banks too. Banks is better in man than he is in zone. Like he's more fit for Wink Martindale's scheme. So with more DBs back there, you could play more man coverage, though that's not Bowen's style. So either way, man, I think Bowen's going to have to adjust, whether it's with the corners or with Abdul Carter and then the whole edge rushing room and the rotation of the defensive line. Corey Black is a gamer for sure. Thinking about Flott being in a contract year, Hawkins is not quite where we thought he would be. Black has a chance to play in spots. So absolutely. Absolutely. As I said, I think it's great that they drafted a corner in the late rounds. And Black has some potential. You are right, Dash. He's got some potential. It is going to be between Hawkins. I think, as you said, Flott. I would keep Flott for like another year. I'd keep Flott for another year. I don't think he did horrendous last year in situations, especially when you had Adoree Jackson just coming back. With you, let Bo develop, but he can hold up if need be early. That is true. Bo would be way better at tackle than guard, way better than Ezeudu. I meant, well, yeah. I mean, Ezeudu is. I think he's like. I'm gonna look at the O-line room, and then we're gonna close it out. As far as Ezeudu's competition, he's got more competition because obviously last year, didn't really perform at tackle. And obviously, sometimes I can't remember stuff from last year, but he might have gotten injured um, to end the season, or maybe it was 23. I know 23 for sure and 22 for sure. But either way, there was just like a lack of trust throwing him in. But he's got Stone Forsythe. He's got Kubis, who did solid last year. He's got Hudson. There's a crap ton of competition, and um, I just don't see where, especially with Neal going into guard. Like, I would rather put my eggs in the basket of Evan Neal being like a halfway decent guard for the year than anything on Azudu. And Azudu is the 3rd round pick, which sucks, but he's turned out to be pretty much a nothing burger for this team. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up here. Thank you guys so much for watching, tuning in. Hit the like button, subscribe, download this if you're on the podcast platforms. I'm going to say about Yankee streams the next few weeks. As I said, I apologize, but it's been hectic. I'm here in Athens, Georgia, doing some post. I didn't graduate officially. I didn't walk the stage yet, but I am done with the work of college, so it's a lot of post-career stuff. But for sure, I'll keep you updated. And if you haven't already, sub up to Nick's Cast as well. Luke will be live with Donald in the Airbnb living room tomorrow night for Knicks Celtics game number 4. Appreciate you guys so much. Let's go, Big Blue.